You are listening to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propagandhi. On this episode, I am delighted to welcome Patrick Mullen. Patrick will tell his own story about being a huge fan of propagandhi, but I invited Patrick on for a very specific reason. He is the editor of Propagandhi's page on Genius.com. If you've ever read any lyrical annotations on Genius, you have seen Patrick's work. I have personally used Patrick's information on the podcast many times, and for a long time I was talking about his work on the podcast without even realizing it. So after Patrick drove to Winnipeg to see Agassi, he and I got in touch and began talking about having him on the podcast, and it took a while, but I'm really happy that Patrick is here. I'm actually turning over hundreds of pages of my own podcast notes from over the past 5 years to Patrick, gradually for some annotation fodder. But this conversation with another documenting superfan was a real blast. So please enjoy my conversation with Patrick Mullen. Patrick Mullen, welcome to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propagandhi.
Greg, thanks for having me.
Patrick, it's been a long time coming. We've meant to do this for a long time, and it's just kind of taken a while for us to get here. But why don't you go ahead and just kind of introduce yourself a little bit to the listeners so they know just a little bit about you before we get rolling here on the conversation about what it is that you do.
Yeah. So you already know my name, Patrick Mullen. I'm like one of those guys on the internet who goes by my real name everywhere. I don't have like a clever handle or anything like that. I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota with my partner, a couple kids, a couple cats, a couple dogs. God, I'm trying to even think like nobody's gonna know me from anything. They've probably stumbled upon my shit for like a number of years and stuff like that. I guess I'm just some like nerd who loves to like document stuff on the internet. I still like fondly remember the days of like early Wikipedia where you could kind of go on that Wikipedia hole, and there was this website, Everything Too, which is like a slash dot, this like nerd website that most people are like, wait, that still exists. I remember about that when I was a kid or something like that. But yeah, I would I would annotate anything there, but I like obsessively consumed that, and it was full of like kind of experts and then non-experts. So like you kind of had to wade through some bullshit because there's sometimes people talking about things they know nothing about. But sometimes there's like really insightful information on that. And like I feel like Genius, for example, kind of how I like gravitated to that was like kind of similar thing. There's like a lot of like lack of information around propagandhi tracks. I remember hearing about like Potemkin City Limits, where one of my friends was like, that song's about a pig. And I was like, oh, I had no clue that that's who that song was about, was a pig. Yeah. So I just kind of like, that's what I do. I'm like, obviously real into propagandhi, have been since I was like a little boy, like a young teenager, a tween, I guess you could say.
Nice.
And yeah, probably similar to you. They're one of my favorite things in the world. They're something that gives me great joy.
Yeah, well, you obviously know that I agree with that. But I think you and I connected at first on Chris's Patreon. Probably, I've been a member for several years now at this point, and I know you have too. What do you dig about his project?
Yeah, the project, specifically like Pyroclastic Flow was
Oh man.
so incredible. Is one of those that I like, said to a couple other people when it came out, and they're like, holy shit, like this is what he's like digging up and doing on there. Like, I don't know, that song is just pretty incredible. And it was kind of like a little bit of like a preview, I feel like, of what at least like content wise or thematically, like what we would encounter on the new album. And I mean, that's really cool to be able to kind of see the genesis of this new album in real time. I'm trying to think other stuff. I've got a couple notes here. Oh yeah, I mean, like the specific, like I'll zoom in a lot, but like hearing that Rented PA riff, like
Mm-hmm.
early on, where I was like, holy shit, this is gonna be one of the riffs on the album. This is the shit he's doing. Um, Trying
It's
to think.
such a great project.
I know, and he enters it, I guess with more earnestness than I expected. Like, I think it's like a lot of people that depending on your venue, maybe the amount of snark you dial up or dial back. But I was kind of, yeah, thrilled at kind of like, I mean, I guess that's one huge upside, quote unquote, air quotes, to COVID is like I got this chance to like take guitar lessons from Lin and like uh connect with, people in my favorite band and things like that.
You took guitar lessons personally with Sulin?
I did like the webinar thing where it's like 20
Cool.
people sign up and you're there learning along. So I think I did Humane Meat and then a couple other ones. I forget the other ones, but it's one of the I picked up a guitar super late and that was like really cool because I feel like it demystified so much about playing. Like you play, correct?
A little bit, yeah. I
Yeah.
just mess
Yeah.
around with it casually here and there.
Yeah, yeah, but it's like strategies to like kind of like, oh, here's how to get the from this chord to this chord, and here's how to use guide fingers and stuff like that. Like all this stuff that like when I have a tendency to learn about stuff, I just like get in there and it gets really messy. And then usually I end up on the other end and I'm like, oh, maybe I should have learned maybe some of the technique before I jumped in and I'd be better at it. But
Yeah.
that's just not how I approach things.
Well, take me back in time. Tell me about when some of your earliest memories of realizing Propagandhi's existence and becoming a fan of them.
Yeah. Okay. So I grew up in this like little town named Melrose in Minnesota, like farm town, like 2,500 people. Um I was like a vegetarian at that point already. And like I remember having teachers who were like, you gotta tell them it's for religious reasons, and then they gotta serve you vegetarian food in the cafeteria, like a lot of pot stirrers still in that town. But there's this place called the Electric Fetus in St. Cloud. That was just an independent record store. So, and it was the 90s. You could get everything everywhere, but the independent record store is kind of where you could find a lot of these nuggets and stuff like that. And I picked up How to Clean Everything just on like a lark. I was like, it's on Fat. Um, Maybe somebody said they sounded like No Effects, like something like that. And I liked No Effects, but it was like lyrically kind of shock over message. I felt like it was like sort of lacking in. So when, you see a back cover of How to Clean Everything and it's like real like jokey, but also like really specific. Like there's like a couple flags even they're planting in the ground where they're kind of, tearing down gender and stuff like that even on the back cover. And yeah, I got that album and I remember I had this like Iowa stereo, AIWA.
Yeah. I remember those.
Yeah, I bought it from was like one of my earliest jobs was detasseling corn, which is you just there's no reason anybody should know about that. But I bought this Iowa stereo and I remember I had this surround sound system and I remember that record sounded so fucking cool on it. Like the guitars, like nothing I don't have it, but it's in my garage now, but like I don't have a system that record sounds that good on. Like that will be forever like imprinted in my memory what records specifically that record too sounds like on that stereo.
Nice.
And I mean that's how I would have discovered them. Like it was one of those things where I cracked it open and I was like, "Oh, holy shit, this is way better than I expected it to be." It was yeah, the feeling was palpable like how good the album was and how much I felt like it was something I was like waiting for. And I kind of oh, he's going for you now.
Oh man, he's getting me big time. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, cat's off camera. Sorry, I distracted us this time here.
No,
Uh
all good.
yeah, yeah. And then I feel like, I listened to that album and I kind of, at that time, that would have been around maybe 95 95 or 94 or something like that, probably 95. Like kind of just like news of new releases and stuff like that didn't travel like they do now. We would have been in this kind of heavy music, like feeding frenzy at that point. So there was just like a ton of noise. So I kind of, it didn't even occur to me that, oh, there's another album out. And then I heard Nation States on like another this radio station KVSC, which is a college radio station in St. Cloud, kind of the um closest big city to Melrose. And it was one of those things that I heard it where I was like, well, holy shit, like I obviously need to get this album. Like, I don't know why I've been sleeping on this. And I feel like it came more into view. Like maybe I looked through the liner notes on how to clean everything, but like I listened to the album, I'm like, well, yeah, let's talk more rock rips, it's great. And then I kind of at a certain point was like, but I want to know like a little more. Like there's not another album out yet. Empires hadn't came out. Quantity hadn't come out yet, so I was kind of like clamoring for more. And you crack open the headliner sheet, whatever you want to whatever you want to call it, and I was like, oh, holy shit, okay, these songs are about a lot more than I perceived.
Yeah.
Um, and that's where I kind of like fell in love at that point, where it it was just like it opened my mind to like all these things that I had never even conceived of. Like I was vegetarian because I just got sick from eating meat all the time. Like I was just food poisoning basically. There's like no
Mhm.
had no reason to be. I thought like, oh, like vegetarians are weird and like, they do it because they're so obsessed with their health and things like that. It's this kind of, 90s kind of theme that I feel like I internalized. Like I just watched too much television where they made fun of vegetarians or something. And then he starts talking about veganism and that I'm like, whoa, like I had no idea this was even a thing. I had no idea that there was, uh environmental or like moral reasons that one would be a vegan. Like it hadn't occurred to me at all. And like by the next week I was like, I'm vegan now. So it's one of those things where it's like even just like him talking about like anti-capitalism and things like that just opened my eyes, just expanded my worldview. In this tiny town of 2,500 people, I suddenly have this like massively different worldview. And it's a worldview kind of similar to like what Chris talks about. It's like maybe I wasn't quite as conservative as Chris, claims he was when he was a little boy, but like I just had no worldview. Like I didn't really
Yeah.
know anything about the world behind me. The world outside of Melrose, really.
So, being that far north, you've gone up to Manitoba and stuff, but did you ever get to see the band live in any of those early days when you were a kid?
No, no, it's there's just my parents were like they're pretty sheltering people. They're just like, I was sneaking off to go to St. Cloud to see shows at a coffee shop and stuff
Mhm.
when I was 15 or 16. So there was just no way I would
Gotcha.
getting up there, which I wish I would have. I mean, they would have come. They're kind of, as I recall, kind of semi not based in Minneapolis, but I want to say maybe someone who maybe one of their tour managers is here or their booker is in Minneapolis or something like that. So there's like a number of shows would have been incredibly easy to see them. They played in Extreme Noise, this like punk record stores label, not label, records. Yeah, this punk record store here. They would have played in their basement for one of their anniversaries. Like they played here pretty often. So I talked to a number of people and they're like, oh yeah, my dad took me to see them on How to Clean Everything at First Ave or, something like that.
Nice. So quick question. Have you ever seen this before? This is the book, How to Clean
Oh.
Everything.
I've maybe seen pictures of it. Yeah. And then we of course have the flag burning fella there.
Uh-huh. So
I love it.
and then that symbol is actually on this page too. Yeah.
That's funny how many little nuggets are. I don't know why I never picked up a copy of that. That's a cool piece of like propaganda ephemera, I feel like.
Let me go to another page here where there's even more artwork. So here's the main artwork right here.
Yeah. I would love to have seen the original thing that George scrawled because I remember Chris talking about it. He's like, yeah, it was kind of this satanic, like dark, like thing. And then they got handed to us and it looked like it was like the Flintstones or something.
Yeah.
And I remember him commenting on it.
All right. So let's chat about Genius.
Sure.
Okay. So Patrick, this is like so awesome to me because your work is so useful to me um as a person who makes this podcast for the last 5 years. I have gone to genius.com to look at lyrical annotations for every single song every single time I'm planning an episode. And so whenever you go to Propagandhi's genius.com entry, there is a list of Propagandhi scholars, and you are number one with I think it's 4,981 annotation points for Propagandhi. And you've got an editor star next to your name. So tell me a little bit about your genius.com journey on the Propagandhi page. When did this start? How did this develop for you?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. So I was looking, I think my first annotation was like 8 years ago, the 8-ish years ago. Maybe it's closer to 9. And I think I went there like I think it probably Potemkin City Limits, the song. I probably was like, oh, I've heard some rumblings about that. And I want to say, um, I definitely would have looked that up there and annotated just some like random things. Like one of the things I really, really love is sometimes there are things said on the record that aren't in the lyric sheet. And there was a number of things like the for every throne there's 1,000 graves, and then there's a parenthetical expression that's give or take a grave or two or something like that. So there was like little nuggets like that because I just like looked at those liner notes so intensely. I feel like those were maybe some of the earliest things I started like putting in there for Propagandhi. But I think I probably initially ended up there because of this band, some Minneapolis band, Lifter Puller.
Oh, I've heard of them.
Yeah, yeah, we got a Lifter Puller poster there. They would have opened the Triple Rock Social Club here, which Propagandhi played at like every time they came through, and that was still a thing. But um, they're kind of like a little bit. They're the only way really they're similar to Propagandhi is they talk about like a lot of places and like a lot of little factoids from their youth. Um, I don't think they try so hard to like say anything specifically, but there's this song, Four Dicks, which is about the four dicks of the apocalypse, essentially. So it'd be the four horsemen in the apocalypse, that are like, getting high with some dude or something like that. And they talk about like a lot of like old places in Minneapolis, like the Nankin, which would have been some diner downtown, kind of by First Avenue, where people would always do shady drug deals and stuff like that. And like I think they're one of those bands that like they never got big enough really. So
Mhm.
like the internet sort of forgot about them. Like there isn't like a whole lot of people like talking about what the lyrics mean or like, oh, they reference a Pink Floyd's Comfortably Numb or something like that in it. Like there was nobody really like talking about those things. And these are like kind of little nuggets that I picked out because like I've just got a ton of friends who are like really into Lifter Puller, it seems. Like that seems to be like the common thread amongst a lot of people I know is they're really into that. So people would just talk about the band or talk about what lyrics meant or whatever. And I definitely that would have been why I started like annotating stuff on there. And I at a certain point, some probably somebody who's way higher on the totem pole on Genius just saw I was annotating a bunch of Propagandhi stuff. Maybe he also liked Propagandhi. I forget the specifics, but he was just like, "Hey, you want to be an editor? Like you're doing some good stuff." Um, but what's also kind of like cool is like um, he would they even like on there, I don't know if it's still the case now, but there's kind of it's encouraged to like, "Hey, do some annotations and then I'm gonna like coach you a little bit on like here's what we like to see. This is the how what the format should look like and stuff like that." And that was kind of cool. It's like a lot of times I don't get that much training on anything. Like every job I've had, they're just like, well, we're so fucking busy. I guess we're just throwing you to the wolves and you'll figure it out. And it was, I mean, which I kind of said that's how I figure a lot of stuff out anyway. But this was like a case where it's nice to have like a little help on like how can you make this stuff look right? What's the expectation of quality? You know, what's too much conjecture? Like I try to just like I really want to keep it um pretty verifiable. Like I want to have some bit of information. Like if I can't say find the specific bit of information, I want to at least be like, well, I heard Chris say that specifically. Yeah, I want it to be like less of this like, oh, I think this is what it means, and more like, well, no, this is what the songwriter meant when he said it.
Yeah. Well, a really big one that jumps out to me is like, the line, "My father told me, son, it's futile to resist." That actually wasn't said by his dad. He talked about that in one of his Patreon episodes where it was somebody that his dad worked with who like was visiting them at their home. Maybe it was in the episode where he was talking about living in Australia for a year.
Oh, yeah, that one.
But it's so funny that like "My father told me, son" is not actually about his dad. It's about somebody else that he was talking about. But he told that whole entire story in Patreon, and I was like, so I
Yeah.
love your approach to that. I was just looking at the rankings, and I am the number 44 annotator points wise on Propagandhi, and you are number one. So, Patrick, here's my thought. I have over 1,500 pages of notes that I've written for the podcast with Steve and Keith over the last 5 years. And my plan is to add you to those documents so that you can pull notes that we wrote over the years and you can see if there's anything in there useful for
Oh,
you.
it will be.
Yeah,
There'll be something in there, a lot of stuff in there, I'm sure.
because like I would like to help. I would like to add a lot of my own stuff to Genius as well. But you're just I'm in the process of trying to finish all of the songs, original episodes as in general.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, man, you're doing so much on there that like if we can collaborate on this, like we can get so many notes added to Genius in the coming years to where genius.com is essentially like the most hardcore propaganda written archive that exists. You know what I'm saying?
Hell yeah, and I mean, it already like, if you compare it to, like,
It's great.
most other bands, it's like they are annotated much more extensively than any band of their size, really, and, yeah, and they're up there with, like, a lot of stuff with, like, a lot of really specific information. I'm
Yeah.
totally down. I think it would save me a ton of time because I feel like I just wander on the internet and I'm like, "God, what's this article I read 15 years ago?" Or, "What's this zine that I read that long ago? Where is that?" Yeah.
Yeah, and Keith was always really good too about like going and finding like old record reviews and stuff like that from like he would like dig up like something online from like 2001. You know what I mean? And he was really good about that. So we have so many links, but it's pure chaos in these notes. Like it makes sense a lot of sense to me and Keith and Steve, but
Yeah.
for you, it would be like a brand new thing. So my plan is to send these to you so that we can essentially open up a lot of the information that we have said on the podcast to readers as well. So
Yeah.
we'll get on that. Tell me about your genius.com habits. How do you go about this on your day-to-day life, like throughout the week?
That's a good question. I mean, a lot of times, so, like, when my partner's, like, doing bedtime with the kids, a lot of times I'll just, like previously I would've just, doom scrolled on my phone or something like that, and I'm like, "Okay, let's pop this open, let's see, who's giving me some thumbs down on annotations and try to fix that stuff." So, one, kinda taking that feedback, like, if people are like, "No, I don't think that's it," like, usually they're right. If they cared enough to hit the thumbs down or thumbs up, like it's usually in good faith. You'd think that, a website exposed to the general public on how easy it is to sign up, you think people would be a little more cavalier with it. But you know, it's the same way that like I'm surprised that you read any of those annotations because a lot of people, and I'm included in this group, did like don't really engage with the internet as much that way anymore. Like maybe Facebook killed it, where or whatever.
Too
Uh,
much.
exactly. Like you don't need thumbs up everything. Like it still like can imprint on you and make an impact on you, even though you didn't like react to it. But yeah, so you just be open to being wrong, is a big focus of it. But I'll just do that stuff at night. I'll do some web searches. I'll listen, to some records and crack open the liner notes, like just like you. I see behind you, you got a bunch of records, and I've got
Hmm.
records from forever ago. I've been collecting them since I was like a little kid. Um, yeah, just kinda like, that would be that's the only habit really behind it is just, like, sit down and don't just veg out, like, let's try to, do something fun for yourself, but also let's try to do something remotely constructive, that feeds, like, a desire that's very real in me to, like, learn more about my favorite band for.
Yeah. Well, something that I appreciate about your work too is like I recently began adding annotations for the first time. I'm brand new to adding annotations to Genius, and I added something to Vampires Are Real, talking about how there's like almost a paraphrase from the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita
Yeah.
in Vampires Are Real. And I found that to be so interesting. And I got to shout out Stephen Yarushi as well, who was instrumental in that and helping me find that annotation too. But then you actually kind of tweaked it and massaged it and edited it into a more digestible format for readers. And so, like, you actually are doing commentary annotation to make things more readable, like an editor at a publishing house would do. You know what I mean? You're tweaking it and you're actually putting in a little bit of effort. So it's not just like approve, approve, approve. It's like you actually are putting in a little bit of time to revise things and make it nice.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you appreciate that. I feel like sometimes I go in there and I wanna, like, edit it, and sometimes I forget how the system works, and maybe it's constantly changing, but sometimes I get credit for it where it's like, "No, I just literally added the source that Greg talked about," or, "Oh, I just Googled it and I found the source that was used there, and I just put it in there." Like, I don't know if I really deserve credit for that sometimes, but yeah, it is. I'm glad it's appreciated. And I guess that's kind of how I've approached it a lot of times is like I want a source where people can learn more too. Like that was a really interesting one that you annotated because I didn't catch that at all initially. And I read that one and I was like, oh, cool. And do you have like theological background or something like that? Did you
I'm
say?
a religious studies teacher.
Okay, that's what I remembered, that you had
Yeah.
some theological background. So, like, I think that's what's really cool too, is like depending on what your background is, you're gonna pull different annotations that I wouldn't because I have different background.
Hmm. Well, okay, so let's chat about some of your favorite things that you've discovered over the years. Do you have any favorite annotations that you're really happy about when you discovered and you added it and you were like, this is so exciting. I can't believe I get to add this.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some coach's corner stuff that I was really I don't even know. Maybe I probably read an interview with Chris or something like that, or maybe like I literally heard him talk about it on a podcast or something like that. But that one was really fun to like kind of go in and learn more about kind of the specific stuff he's talking about, specific like, here's the actual event that happened. And that's what I think is so powerful about kind of what certainly what Chris writes, but also Todd, is like there's these stories. And stories are the things that are like so relatable to people, and stories draw people in and get people to think critically. And you can like kind of, you can take a phrase and you could blow it up into a much bigger thing, like something that could say so much more than that, 5 words could. Potemkin City Limits is like another one of those for sure. Like I definitely wrote the bio on that one. That one was like cool to dive in, learn about like the history of Red Deer.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, the kids like love stories like that too and stuff like that. Just like generally about a pig running away from the slaughterhouse and stuff like that. I mean, it's practically a fairy tale. It's an old fairy tale where something brutal happened at the end, but um Lotus Gate, there's definitely like a couple like cool annotations in there. There's one line that's really stuck out in that song, the line about the wandering mind stumbles through it and relives them all eventually.
Mhm.
Which I think is just such a cool I mean, it's a line that gives me like hope where I'm like, these awful people at some point, they're not perfect, they're clearly not perfect. But they don't have total mastery of their brains that they're like, oh, well, they're gonna have to relive in some form these awful things that they've done. They can't run away forever.
Yeah, and I'm looking at your Lotus Gate one. One's mind eventually returns to this existential crisis, so this gadgetry and entertainment isn't even all that good at truly soothing us long term. This technology and entertainment is a short term solution to a problem that requires a long term, meaningful solution. And like that kind of stuff is so useful because it just lets everybody gives everybody an entryway into realizing the moments of their own life that are in sort of relation to Chris's own experiences as the writer, but we can pinpoint moments in our own lives where we felt the same as him, which just makes the connection a little deeper for listeners too.
I know. Yeah, you're totally right, and it's yeah. I have a sister who's the same age as him, so like she would have probably lived a lot of these similar experiences, and we had similar upbringings, and there's just like so many kind of ways I relate to his existence. Like I've heard a lot of like my partner she connects way more with like what John has to say in the band and how he says it, but that has to do with her upbringing. And for me, it's like kid playing sports and in this like tiny little town, listen to heavy metal music like that connects way more with my experience for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, and I'm looking now at your Potemkin City Limits one, and I love how you can expand the bio of the song. And there's a 3 paragraph description with a couple of links embedded on what Potemkin cities are, but also the story of Francis the pig escaping from the abattoir in Alberta, and it has a really nice big photo of the statue. So it's really cool that there's so much stuff embedded in here. How many songs on the Propaganda Genius actually have like full developed bios like this?
And not that many of them. I'm probably responsible for 99% of them, I would
Yeah.
say at this point. I mean, the bio is kind of swinging for the fences. You need to have like a pretty solid understanding about this song. Not many of, and sometimes even the bios aren't that good. It's literally like, oh, Chris called this song C sharp. He called Victory Lap C sharp initially before he had a name for it. Like sometimes they are as small as that. I mean, I would say less than probably 1% of them have a bio that good, I feel like. But I mean, I think that's like a good maybe like challenge to like get those bios together. I just yeah, I a lot of the stuff on Genius, like I leave a lot of stuff unreviewed because I'm like I need to like roll that stuff around in my brain. I need other people to comment on it. So I guess that's this maybe why there isn't a whole lot of bios is like I need input from other folks, which is why you talking about sharing the notes is super useful is I need some other perspectives too.
Nice. Yeah, I'm actually looking at your Victory Lap bio here. Originally referred to as C sharp in reference to the song's guitar tuning ahead of its release in advance of the album, Victory Lap is the first studio recorded song to feature Propagandi's new guitar player, Sulan Hago. So that's all there is to it. Very short, but there is a significant amount of annotations throughout the Victory Lap lyrics. I mean, almost everything has some kind of annotation, with just a few things here and there that are commented upon. I love it when I'm looking at a single line of lyrics, like when the flames engulfed has its own annotation. Then the Home of the Brave, which is still the same line, has a separate annotation. So you can even switch up annotations within a single line of sung lyrics to have separate commentary. So, I mean, this has really got so much potential for growth. I mean, you really could go so hard on this and just really annotate the living snot out of it, couldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, you could. The only the place where it falls down is like if I'm like, oh, these two, oh, these annotations are broken out. I think we need to group them together. I have to totally delete the annotation and rewrite it and take complete credit for it, basically. Like I can't be like, I've even had some annotations where I've had to do that and I have to be like, oh, I think, oh, Rogue Lettuce or something like that gets credit for this annotation. Like, doesn't get the points, but like, I at least need to give somebody some credit for that. But yes, kind of that micro sort of annotation approach is, I think, super useful in certain
So,
because he says so much.
yeah, so what can listeners do to help? Like, because obviously you have to be a little cautious. You can't overdo it because then it like just dilutes everything and it
Yeah,
also muddles it.
yeah.
So, say people out there wanted to help, what would you say is good help versus unuseful help?
I mean, one of the obvious is sometimes restating the line is just not super useful a lot of times. I think certain lines are like, well, that's pretty obviously, at least to me, it's pretty obviously what that line is about. They're saying it pretty directly. I think the most useful stuff is to just kind of like, especially if you're not like an editor or something like that, just like put some thoughts down. Like, I think that's like, I've started to do this to try to like, it doesn't help how it's laid out because you can comment on an annotation. So you can thumbs up, thumbs down an annotation, but you can also be like, oh, like this line is you're missing something about this, and which is that's super useful when people are like, you're missing something. It's not wrong, but you're missing a specific detail about it, and this is super useful. And just even just to have a dialogue about this stuff. I think that's like really, really useful to be like, oh, I think this is what it's about. And maybe you don't need to actually annotate the line, but if the line's already annotated, like I think it's cool that people kind of kick it around or have the potential to like kind of kick it around and be like, well, I heard this and I heard this. And I think everybody is like a little stronger together. I think a bunch of brains together usually are more useful than just a single one calling the shots. So I think that's the most useful thing. But even just like, if you have the records, crack them open and I don't think you need to like pull everything out of there so people don't open, the record jacket themselves and look at it and stuff like that. But I think that sort of ephemera is sort of cool to maybe like make people go out and get an album because I think you probably noticed this too with the band is it's a little different experience to digest say a whole album or the record over something on Spotify or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of a fine line is you don't want to like kind of over annotate and make like all the other stuff obsolete, like your podcast or Chris's podcast or something like that. Like I still very much I want to link to this stuff again to like learn more, to like blow it up bigger. So that would be maybe another thing is like cite those sources, like give me a link and probably what I got to do better about is link to something on the Internet Archive rather than, you know, some website that there was an interview on 15 years ago or something like that. I think that's
Nice.
useful. That's useful too.
Sweet. Cool. Well, let's chat like generally a little bit about a couple of things. I want to know what your favorite Propagandhi record is and why it's your favorite.
Okay. Yeah, this is I mean, it's sort of like a favorite child kind of thing. I feel
Yeah.
like it's hard to pick one, but because Propagandhi records are not children, I can totally do that. Uh, I mean, it's supporting cast, like to me pretty clearly. Like it's I mean, they're all not all, but they're mostly perfect records to me. But supporting cast was one of those times that it just like dovetailed in my life with kind of like getting back into like heavy metal and stuff like that. So I was like a young little metalhead, listening to punk music, became kind of got pulled back into metal. And that's what's strange is Propagandhi really kind of like pushed me back into that world very much, where I think I was kind of like down at coming from the 80s. I was like a little down on it. Like a lot of at least the mainstream stuff was like really vacuous. It was just like didn't really have a whole lot to say. But supporting cast, like, I love how excited and energized the band was. I saw them play. God, they played all the time in
Yeah.
Minneapolis on that. I probably saw them 5 or 6 times on that tour. Not all in Minneapolis, but a bunch of times in Minneapolis. Every track is a rager. Like I love the way Beaver plays with Chris. Like I love Chris playing alone. I love Chris playing with Sue Lin, but there's like something really special about that partnership with Beaver, and maybe part of it is because he brings in a lot of the work separately from Chris. So it's like maybe a they're still collaborative, but maybe a little less collaborative, which I really, really appreciate. And I feel like it was also the point where a bunch of my friends got into the band where they're like,
Hmm.
"Oh, I never even knew this. I didn't even know about this band. I knew you liked this band, never checked them out. There's so much more to them than I realized." Like even got some of my friends into like punk music and stuff like that who would never listen to punk music otherwise. And I mean, even some of my friends I don't know if they're vegan because of the band, but certainly some of like a lot of the arguments that they make around that, especially on supporting cast, were like pretty profound to a number of people I know, and like making them change a number of lifestyle things.
Yeah. Um, cool. Yeah, I agree. I mean, supporting cast is my one, which I'm well documented as saying as well, but it just hit me at a perfect time and place. And I got to see them live on that tour, on that era so many times. And the partnership between Chris and Beeve, I just can't say enough about. And even hearing Chris and Beeve just hang out when he did the Tartuffe episode on Patreon, you can just tell that those guys are just real good buds and that friendship matters a whole lot. So I love it. Um, Speaking of Beeve,
Yeah,
you are one of the only people that I know who have seen Agassi live.
yeah.
And so I want to know about your trip that you took to see Agassi with Beeve, Derek, and Ryan open for John Wright from No Means No's new band, Dead Bob. Tell me about that trip.
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember if that was before or after the Palestine benefit show.
I think it was before. Let me look up the Dead Bob dates.
Yeah,
Dead Bob, Winnipeg Park Theater. So Dead Bob was there on March 11th, 2024.
okay.
And then the Gaza benefit was 2 months later in
Got
May of 2024.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out like, oh, did I go up there because I missed the Gaza benefit show? Um, I think it was just like I just decided to go on a lark. I remember the border guard thought I was out of my mind. He's like, long way to drive for a show, buddy. Like he was very, very suspicious
Yeah,
of what I was doing. But I've been up to Winnipeg like a bunch of times. It's only 8 hours for me.
it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's a drive to Chicago basically
Yeah.
for um and I got a buddy who lives in Fargo, so it's kind of like, oh, let's have some beers and ride some bikes around and stuff like that for a little while. He's in Moorhead actually, but Fargo Moorhead are right next to each other. So that's like kind of the halfway point. So I'm always like, oh, I can go see a friend, and then I can go a little bit further up to Winnipeg. Um, that drive, the last hour drive into the city of Winnipeg from Fargo Moorhead is just brutal, though. You're just driving through the city, and you're using up an entire washer fluid tank, kind of stuff. But I digress. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think I bought the tickets, probably only. a couple days before, or maybe I bought the tickets. I do that a lot where I buy tickets and I'm like, okay, I'm going to figure it out later, or I can give the ticket to somebody else. That's what I did with the Gaza one, where I was able to find somebody who was like, can I just like give somebody the ticket? Like, you can't even buy a ticket. So maybe I can give it to somebody so they can enjoy what I cannot. Um, but yeah, I went to see him. It was kind of like a pleasant surprise. I didn't expect anybody from Propagandhi was going to be there. So it was like funny to run into a number of them. I'm so fucking like awkward, and I'm like, I don't want to fuck these guys that I can be like, hi, see ya. I gotta run to the other side of the room now, kind of thing. Um, but Agassi is like just such a I don't know, they gel so well as a band, and you like see it playing live, and I'm like a big fan of bands that like actually like each other. Like I mean like
Yeah.
a lot of bands out there that just absolutely hate each other. And to me, that's a big part of the joy of seeing a live band, and just like seeing how much they appreciate each other. Um and yeah, that I mean, it was they played for 30 minutes, 35 minutes, probably not very long at all, but um I've been super fun. I've never been to the Park Theater. It's like a much better version of the Triple Rock venue, basically. You walk into the restrooms and you're like, wow, they haven't torn down the stalls,
Yeah.
they haven't graffitied over everything. um, so that was like, oh, just a lot of fun to see him. I really, wasn't super into No Means No beyond the album Wrong,
Hmm.
before that, but that was super fun. Like it's when I listened to the Dead Bob album ahead of time, and I was like, it's fine. I don't it's really not something I need. And then I saw him play live and I was like, "Oh, this is incredible." Like Ford is just a ridiculous character, and I've seen him here as well in St. Paul, actually. And the John is just he's just so fun to see play. He's just like a funny dude. Like his energy's infectious. Like such an incredible drummer. I just love how he plays. And yeah, he's kind of got like kind of a sardonic sense of humor and stuff like that. And even just seeing him like sit at the merch table, he's signing like the Jason Lamb book for people and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And I was like, I that was one of the things where I was like, I guess I gotta dive into this band a little more. Like people really like this band. And like people are like lining up to talk to him after the show, which is another thing I love is like John's just like, let's hang out and like talk and like have a beer and like shoot the shit, which of course I learned like, well, that's John when I read the book. Whereas like
Yeah.
that's kind of always been his thing. But there's something kind of cute about that. We need more of this like platonic male friendship, certainly. Like let's just enjoy our company together.
Well, he makes beer, his own beer, and he's just such a nice guy. And I was so happy to have John on this podcast as well. Because Jord and Todd and Beeve talked about No Means No publicly so many times that I just pulled together a bunch of quotes.
Yep.
And I was just reading them to John, be like, okay, Jord says this. Tell me what you think. Okay, Todd says this. Tell me what you think. And John's like, oh my gosh. So I have like a whole entire interview with John recorded, just him reacting to Propagandhi, like complimenting him. And it was so funny because I'm sure it was so awkward for him, but he was such a good sport about it. But I actually love that Jason Lamb No Means No book, From Obscurity to Oblivion. It's actually sitting right there. There's a pile
Yep.
of books on
See
the
it.
floor. You can
Yep.
see it. It's
Yep.
that white one. It's sitting next to Sheldon Burney's Missing Like Teeth book. Then there's John K. Sampson's Lyrics collection book. Then there's John Stoltenberg's Refusing to Be a Man. And Here's How to Clean Everything. And I was just like looking at all my books the other day for things that I've used for the podcast.
Sure.
And there's the pile sitting right there on the floor in my room. But that's the right here that I'm pointing to. That's Refusing to Be a Man by John Stoltenberg.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
I have a copy of that, but it's a little different.
Yeah, there
Little
were
different.
several
Yep.
different versions of that one. Well, very cool. Well, Patrick, what a delight. What are you working on next? Like, what are some things that you want to do in the future in relation to this band? Any projects that you could see yourself working on? What you got going on?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I'll just continue to like absorb information, and find some use for all the information that I absorb. I'll annotate some more stuff on Genius, I guess. Like I'll go see the band a little more and kind of soak that up. That's about it. I'm just trying to do a little less these days as I spend more time at home. I'm just trying to do less.
Yeah.
That isn't exactly the epitome of ambition, clearly, but
Y-
yeah,
No, I am exhausted as a person, and recently I've been coming to accept the fact of how overwhelmed I have felt for a long time now. And I'm actually to the point now where I am actively brainstorming how to reduce my output in some ways. I've just finished a massive project, so I'm just like really fried and I'm trying to find out the best way to recharge. So I completely hear you. Um, Really quick before we go,
yeah,
how are you? So, as you may have heard me say at various points, I am not a fan of immediate reaction stuff. I don't really care for people watching or hearing music for the
oh,
first time and then immediately
yeah,
reacting. So
yeah,
people are probably like, "Oh, why aren't there new episodes about the album yet?" And I'm like, "Because I'm going to do at peace episodes in like a year,
yeah,
after I have fully brought these songs into my psyche." You know what I'm saying?
mm, yeah.
But 3 weeks after the release of the record, where is At Peace sitting with you? How is it sitting with you as a record, just broadly,
Yeah,
knowing that you have a ways to go to fully, process everything?
truly, I mean, the number of times I've listened to it, I feel like I've gotten in about a year's worth of listens on this record already because of I was just so ready for it. I mean, it's like a cool companion piece, I think, to Victory Lap. Like those two records, they're the longest apart, but they to me, there's so many themes that are similar, and at peace I feel like he expands upon a number of those themes as well. Finally, like my excessive listening of the the track at peace is finally working in the album sequencing for me. Like I just listened to it too much before it came out, where I was like, okay, this is a great song, but I gotta skip it. I've heard it too much. And I love it. It's velocity. I think he's probably talked about, Chris has talked about this before, is like velocity. You can achieve it in other ways. And, at this point, anybody commenting on it being slow, I'm kind of like, who cares if it is? And also maybe other people will I think about like playing Propagandhi around people who are like uninitiated, and I feel like At Peace is like one of those albums that you could probably play for uninitiated people, and they're just like, "What's up with?" And they're not going to be like, "What's up with this drum beat?" Like it's
Yeah.
just so frantic.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like it's got the velocity that kind of like I'm looking for, but I think there's going to be like a number of people who kind of like check the band out and come into the fold because certainly the pacing of the record isn't quite as frantic, I guess,
Yeah.
as previous releases.
You know what it does for me? Like the fan bases that I could see coming in on this record and really enjoying it are like Baroness fans and Mutoid Man fans
Yeah.
and Rage Against the Machine fans. You know what I mean? Like people who like a little bit of groove and a little bit of riffs, but
Yes.
aren't all about velocity and BPMs. I mean, that's who this record could open up to. You know what I'm saying?
And you got to do something new on every record to keep people interesting and people interested. Which is, I think, something the band does so well. Like they're always kind of doing something new, and I'm here for it. I didn't need another exactly Victory Lap again. Like I wanted something that reimagines their not formula. It's not formula, but like reimagines all those components of the band to bring something new to the table.
To me, this record is if Fixed Frequencies and Cut into the Earth became a record.
Yeah, I mean, Fixed Frequency certainly like thematically shows up all over it. And Fixed Frequencies was one of those songs that feel like I kind of skipped for a number of years, and then I
Me
had a
too.
friend.
Same.
I had a friend who was like, "That's my favorite song." Like he wasn't even that into the band. He's like, "That's my favorite song," and I was like, "Oh, that is a really different song than a lot of their discography."
Yeah. When people say that this record is like a massive departure, I thought that at first, and now I think that less because when I made those Potemkin connections, this is like, failed states, Potemkin kind of sounds to me,
Mhm.
and cut into the earth, life at disconnect, fixed frequencies. These types of sounds have become fully fleshed out on this record. So they've always been this band. And
Mhm.
so I think Chris finds all the commentary about the massive departure very humorous,
Yeah.
which I love. And absolutely, I don't know how you feel about this, but I actually love watching people complain and say they don't like it. I'm like, yes, because it's just entertaining to me because I'm a sicko. Um,
Give it
so
time, though. Give it time. Like it, every one of their records, not everyone, but yeah, Potemkin was the same way for me. I didn't hear it and was like, "This is awesome." Like I heard it, and then I took like a year off, and then I listened to it again, and I'm like, "Oh, this is an incredible album." Like you need to digest it a little bit. It's not this instant gratification you're gonna get from like a pop record.
totally. All right. Well, Patrick, how can people get in touch if they want to, join forces with you and see what's going on?
I mean, you could message me on Genius. You could message me on Chris's Patreon. I'm on there. You could email me. I'm still a guy who uses email. It's just first name, last name, Patrick Mullen at Gmail. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think how else. I pretty much just killed all the social media stuff. So you won't be able to find me on any of that, but I think there's a number of places you can find me if you want to job at Propagandhi or whatever else.
Yeah, I'm looking at the genius.com/artist/propaganda page right now. And if you hover over the top Propaganda scholars, which is your name, there is a message button that pops right up. So that's probably the thing that I would suggest people to, especially if they want to collaborate and get involved with what you're doing for the text annotations over at genius.com.
Oh,
Patrick Mullen, Propaganda nerd extraordinaire. Thank you for joining forces with me finally to talk about documenting this band, and I hope to have a 1,000+ pages of documents in your email in the very near future. I'm just going to kind of glance through
well, you
everything and make sure it's all you know understandable before I bombard you. But to see all the writing that Keith and Steve and I have done over the last 5 years, get gradually documented so that more people can access it would be really sweet. I've thought about just like sharing an open access link to the Google Drive, but I'm like, that would just be too much. So
pandemonium.
a way to channel it productively through Genius and through what you're doing, I think that's actually the move. So Patrick, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks so much, Craig. Thanks for having me.